Thank you very much for the nice introduction, Natalie, and also for the invitation to speak at this webinar today from eduhub Switzerland. I'm very stoked to have so many people already in the session tonight, or actually in the morning for most of you, I assume. And what we have planned to do for today is that we'll look at things of how we can get institutions to adopt ePortfolios and see what are some of the factors that influence the uptake of ePortfolios, and then see also what some of the strategies are, what some of the good points are and positive effects of having that implementation across organizations, and see what is possible, and then hopefully also get a lot of insight from the participants in the room, because I see that a number of you have already been ePortfolio users for years and years and years. So please feel free to share your experiences and insight as well, so that we can all learn from each other. And so as Natalie, as we've said earlier, this session is being recorded, so you will have the link posted afterwards on the eduhub website. And you can already view the slides if you want to see them bigger on your own screen. The first link goes to the live slides that I'm controlling, so you can just sit back and relax and watch. And then the second link is the one for after the presentation, so that you can advance the slides yourself. But now let's get started. The first thing that I find is really, really important when we have ePortfolio implementations is that everybody is on board. While it can be useful that we have a grassroots movement and one teacher, one instructor at a university or a small group of people started, in order to really take it organization-wide, it often does need the approval from the management area, and also really put it in place in the entire organization, because otherwise it is still being fragmented, and then students may use a portfolio in one course but then not in the 3 others that they have at the same time or that follow on, and therefore there's not really a lot of continuity. And so oftentimes they can really see the ePortfolio only as that one-time activity, like any other class activities, instead of seeing it more also as a lifelong, or at least university-long or school-long activity that they do in order to not just look at a project or their progress over a short period of time, but really look at their progress through their studies over a longer time frame in order to see their movements, see where they started and have now gone a little bit easier. So buy-in from management, from the organization, from head of departments, from entire faculties and so on, I find really important, so that we get continuity into ePortfolio implementations, as well as also show the students that it is not just a one-time thing that you do, but that it ties into so many areas and also helps connect individual areas of studies or learning. Next to having the buy-in from the organization, of course, we also need a direction. Because if everybody kind of does a portfolio very differently, then again, it is very fragmented and does not help show a united front and show what an ePortfolio is about. I don't mean that in the sense that then suddenly everybody has to do exactly the same thing in an ePortfolio, and that there's only one way of having an ePortfolio, be it a showcase portfolio, a process-oriented portfolio, or an assessment portfolio, or any other type of portfolios. It is rather that the organization knows, yes, we are putting an ePortfolio in place, we are looking at it with students. This is the plan that we are having for the ePortfolio use, for example, starting it in the first year and then continuing it out through the entire course of studies, in order to get a cohesive look and feel in there, to also get instructors on board so that they can build on top of the activities that have already been done in the ePortfolio before. So what we see at organizations is at university level, for example, that they can already start at in the first year or even before the start of the university, engage students in activities, start them on their ePortfolio, and then use it as a showcase portfolio, but then later on continue into a developmental portfolio so that students see their progress themselves, and then can end up, for example, at a employment-based portfolio or employment-oriented one, where students apply for an internship or for a job and can use all the work that they have done in the past in order to showcase themselves, their capabilities, and also their competencies. And having a direction helps there for the organization, because similarly to having a lesson plan, having a plan of what you want to do with a portfolio, who needs to be involved in it, what resources and on the technological side are required, whether your instructors need any training, whether the students need training, whether there is going to be also a platform where those portfolios are presented, where students can also showcase the work that they have done, is important. And one university, for example, is Pace University in New York. And what they do is they showcase student portfolios on a very regular basis, and they actually have a competition. And the competition helps in the sense that the students really also achieve a lot in the portfolios and want to make their portfolios nice in order to win the competition. And so simply by showcasing student work, the portfolio becomes an everyday part of campus life, and sometimes students even start creating portfolios without having the specific requirement in their class yet, simply because they've seen what their friends have done and are interested in exploring the tool as well. And please feel free to put any questions into the chat if you have some, or also comment and let us know about your own experiences. A third item that I find immensely important when implementing ePortfolios is having the enthusiasm for it. Nothing is worse than having somebody work on an ePortfolio saying, oh, I don't really like it, I just have to do it, I don't really want to do it, I don't see the purpose in it. In contrast to somebody like Siggy or like Beth Gordon from Pace University or Linda from the Czech Republic, who are really enthusiastic about implementing ePortfolios, working with their students, with them, looking at new ways of using the portfolios in order to show students, but also staff, that it is a really useful tool. And we have many of these very enthusiastic people in our Mahara community. But of course, many of those concepts actually that we are talking about today don't just apply to the use of one particular technology, but really apply across the board around ePortfolios. So being enthusiastic, being behind it, wanting to do an ePortfolio really, really helps also providing a positive energy in the organization. And since we've just started talking about technology of course also plays a role, but it only plays a role in the sense of oftentimes supporting the ePortfolio initiative, because choosing the technology should not be in the foreground. I find that knowing why you want to use an ePortfolio, knowing what the purpose of it is way more important than whether choosing one particular technology. Some universities and schools even leave it open to their students and teachers and don't force them into one particular technology. So you see implementations on Mahara, on WordPress, on other blogging platforms or other systems that the university subscribe to. The technology is in a lot of ways secondary. It should definitely support your ePortfolio initiative. So if you want to choose a technology, you should definitely do it informed, like with a learning management system as well, or any other tool that you implement in your organization. But it should not be that you say, I want to use this particular tool, and now I work my ePortfolio strategy around it. Look at what you want to achieve, whether you want to have a showcase portfolio, an assessment portfolio, a process-oriented portfolio, a portfolio for primary school students, or a portfolio for adult learners. All these factors and many more are important in choosing the platform that is the most appropriate, because you don't want to bend your ePortfolio strategy into the technology, but rather want to use the benefits and advantages of using a particular system in order to support your decision for the ePortfolio. Agni, you ask, how do you trigger enthusiasm? And Natalie, yes, that's correct. Be enthusiastic yourself. And I find oftentimes enthusiasm as similar to motivation. It does have to be intrinsic, and just working with extrinsic motivation does not quite work. And therefore, I always find you need to stand behind the ePortfolio idea and why you want to use it with students or even with staff at an organization, instead of just saying, oh, I have to do it. And when you're behind the ePortfolio and you really see the purpose in it and you want to use it and you know why it is good, then I find the enthusiasm often comes on its own. Let me just see. Jean says, I know that Americans like to compete and show off, hence competition among students at pace. I know I grew up in the States and find Swiss students don't want to compete. That's a very interesting point, Jean. Pace definitely is the only university that I know of that has a competition, and it definitely helped them, especially in the beginning, to get students encouraged to produce nice ePortfolios and not just do one for the purpose of creating a portfolio. And now it's become part of their ePortfolio practice. But I think it is more than just a competition, because it is also showcasing student work. So a number of their students have used the ePortfolio also to apply for jobs. One got a job because of his ePortfolio. And there are many other examples then from that university, but also others, where we can see that not really wanting to work with the ePortfolio is helpful. Okay, what else is important? Supporting an ePortfolio implementation. And that is oftentimes where I find organizations struggle, because somebody might have a really good idea of saying, okay, let's implement ePortfolios. We build our curriculum around it. We put it in place. But then if there's no support from the organization, teachers may not know who they can ask if they have a question. Students don't know where they can turn to for questions. Then it is then we have one really important component of an ePortfolio implementation lacking, simply because it unlike other tools, it is not supported. So where do you share ideas? Where can you get a sense of belongingness? And also, how do you figure things out? And just a couple of weeks ago, there was a webinar from the ePortfolio Australia community where a law school did talk about that, and others as well. And support is very important for ePortfolio implementations, and not just in the beginning, but also throughout, so that instructors can talk to somebody who can help shape the initiative or refine things more, and also having the support for students. And support does not always have to be from a learning technologist. Support can also be students. Pace University, again, as example, has their so-called interns. So they are interns who are on the electronic front, and they help both students and instructors. At Teachers College, there are tech fellows, and they are also students who support instructors in the implementation, not just of the ePortfolio, but also of any other instructional tools that they have. And they support the instructors, create activities for them, work with them on best strategies, and then also help students and are the support desk, because they are very well suited to do that since they speak the language of other students. And especially when you want to look into rolling out an ePortfolio at your entire organization, or even just over multiple programs, support becomes important, so that you also know my organization is behind it. I get regular updates to the software that I'm using. I can go to conferences to learn more, to share my ideas, my findings, and learn from others, and also to really make it part of our institution. And kind of going back a little bit to the enthusiasm, to Angi's question, oftentimes the enthusiasm can also come when you start using it first. What we've seen, for example, here in schools in New Zealand, is that especially teachers in the beginning can be very skeptical because they have to use a new tool that they aren't used to. New ways of incorporating into their classroom can be scary. And so schools oftentimes adopt it so that they introduce the teachers first to the ePortfolio before they are supposed to use it with their students, so that they can get more comfortable in the use of it, can learn the functionality, can find their way around, so that they can also help their students. And for example, at Tava Intermediate School, a school pretty close here to Wellington City, is a school where teachers started using the ePortfolio for their teacher appraisal and performance review sessions with their principal. And they were also supposed to reflect on their teaching at least once a week, and then the principal looked at that work and reviewed it, gave feedback on it, and therefore helped her staff in understanding their learning and making improvements. And only after about a year of using my portfolio, which is Mahara-based, the school then moved to teachers also using the portfolio with students. Because they were comfortable in the use of the tool, they didn't have to question themselves or feel scared, and it really helped them implement the ePortfolio across the school. And we have numerous other accounts like that, where ePortfolios are oftentimes used for performance appraisal first, before it is being used with students. And yes, students often know more about technology than their lecturers, but what we've also found is, and heard accounts of from other people, is that students still want their lecturer to know at least the technology to a certain degree, and know that they know what they are doing and why they are doing it. It doesn't mean that they need to know the technology to the T, but it does mean that they can just say, oh, I don't know the technology, you just figure it out and let me know. They do need to have a basic understanding, I think, and especially with the ePortfolio, because it is different from other activities where you need to work consistently on it, reflect on a regular basis in order to keep up with a portfolio, and not say, oh, I'm doing my portfolio just the night before it's due. It does help knowing what those processes are and how difficult it can be to actually write a reflective journal entry once a week, or maybe in some cases even once every other week. How difficult it can be for some to express themselves in writing. And so teachers could then, when they know that, when they've experienced it themselves, can go and say, okay, instead of writing, do you want to try audio recording yourself, or painting, or taking photos, or shooting a short video clip? And some of these suggestions may not come if they haven't experienced that. For some students, it may be tricky to go kind of with the one suggestion that their teacher has made. And another thing that is important, I find, is don't try to start with everything and with everybody, but start small, try it in a pilot, see how it goes with a few students or with a few staff members, and then go big. Once you have refined your strategy, once you know that the way you want to use ePortfolios at your organization works, it's always going to be a process. So an ePortfolio implementation, I think, is never really finished. But what we can do is we can try to work it out in a small group and then make it bigger and roll it out further so that it grows more organically, and that later groups can take advantage of the learnings from previous ones. And that, of course, also means that we can scaffold and should scaffold quite a bit in the beginning. And scaffolding can take numerous ways. One way is that we scaffold the teachers use be mentors and support them in their implementation in the classroom, or that we also create material to get students and teachers started quickly using ePortfolios. And one way is by doing that by using templates. And this one here is a template from Te Kowhai School here in New Zealand. It is a primary school, and that is for registered teacher criteria. So the school, again, doesn't use the portfolio yet with students, but they use it with their staff. And every teacher needs to reflect on the teacher criteria in order to stay a registered teacher. And the school has created a comprehensive template, a collection of Mahara pages in this case, where they showcase the key indicators for every RTC, so for every registered teacher criterion, and then also give guiding questions along and also reflective questions. That will then help prompt the teacher in finding ways to express themselves and showcase what they have learned and reflect on their own teaching and working with the students. And so every teacher gets this collection of registered teacher criteria evidence and can start right away. So they don't have to create those pages from scratch, but they can work with them. But it also doesn't mean that they need to use them as they are. So they can change the images, they could change the column layout. For me, a template is oftentimes actually just an invitation to start something off in Mahara. It does not mean it has to be followed rigidly. So you can always change things around, but at least you have a starting point. So it's kind of starting with questions instead of just a blank piece of paper. And that oftentimes does help people to overcome the fear of, oh, where do I start? What do I need to put into my portfolio? Because they have some ideas on hand. And just to show a slightly different template, to show you that templates can look very different. Here we have one from the City of Glasgow College. And that template also has instructions again for the students, and these instructions are oftentimes more direct than on the Te Kowhai example. And as you can see, there are also many template pages in this collection, which really talks about a person themselves and guides them through setting up their curriculum vitae and also reflecting on their goals and on their skills. And since we just talked about reflecting, a crucial aspect for me, no matter what type of portfolio you work with, is the reflection. And but in this case, reflection actually doesn't mean just the reflection on a portfolio, but also the reflecting on the ePortfolio implementation at your organization. Because like with other ways of other teaching methods, you got to reflect. You have to see what worked, what didn't work, in order to fine-tune things. We hardly ever get the perfect ePortfolio implementation from the start, unless somebody already has lots and lots of experience in the organization, has been working with ePortfolios and so on. But if we start out, there's a lot of trial and error, and fine-tuning it over time is very helpful. Take, for example, Te Kowhai School. They created their template over the course of a year. That might sound like a really, really long time, but the school needed this time in order to implement this new way of working with the registered teacher criteria and also of getting staff on board. And they did trial parts of the templates out over time and then refined them. But the final one that they thought fits best for their needs at the moment, in the end, was done after about a year. And now that they are happy with the template, they can roll it out to all their teachers without having to make a lot of changes down the line. But they know that this is what works for them for at least as long as bigger changes need to be made. And fine-tuning is important so that we know where they are, where we need to tune, whether it is more support that needs to be given or whether few support is okay, whether we need more instructions or different plugins in the system, or anything that really helps support the campus community or the user community in general at an organization in the ePortfolio implementation. And then once we are kind of there or on the way of being in the middle of our ePortfolio implementation, I always find sharing is important as well. Because through sharing, you talk about what you're doing and you get feedback from other people. And you also get new ideas because you see what others are doing, what is being done in your organization that others really, really like and want you to talk about more. And so you also get the confidence in knowing that your ePortfolio implementation is a great one. And platforms like Switch Portfolio, which is available to all universities or higher education institutions in Switzerland, and My Portfolio here in New Zealand, which is available to all schools, are fantastic examples because they allow any user on the platform to connect to anybody else. So people implementing ePortfolios at one organization can talk to other people at other organizations implementing ePortfolios, form working groups, and really work together to work things out. And in order to come to the point where an ePortfolio, for example, is implemented in multiple programs or across an entire organization. And through that sharing, we learn so much from each other and see how things are being done, what we can change, and aren't just confined to our own little space. Especially in New Zealand, that is important because some of our schools only have 1 or 2 teachers. And so if the entire school, which might just be 20 or 30 students, implements ePortfolios, there are not a lot of teachers in the school that you can talk to. Whereas on My Portfolio, you can very easily reach out to teachers across the country and share your ideas with them. And that sharing is just really good for building communities and also learning from each other. So now the only thing that leaves me to say is go for it. Give it a go. If you haven't already started, see where you can start, what helps you, how you can start with your pilot, which technology you're using once you have figured out which way of ePortfolios or a mix of ePortfolios you want to use and make use of, so that you start small and then experiment and see what works for you at your organization, reflect on your processes, and then fine-tune them, or maybe even change them entirely. And if you want to know more and discuss more things with Mahara users, please check out our events calendar, which you can find under that URL, which you see on the screen, and I'll also post them here into the chat. And the second one goes to a webinar which is not happening until the 4th of September, I think it is, from ePortfolio Australia. And that is on knowing what others think are barriers to ePortfolio use. And these can be, knowing these restrictions are of course also very helpful. And the ePortfolio Australia webinar is not just for Mahara users, it is for ePortfolio users in general. And so you'll gain very good insight. The time is relatively Europe friendly. I think it is also either 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock Central European time. And so it is definitely worthwhile attending this free webinar. And if you want to share your own ePortfolio story with Mahara, I invite you to submit a short article to the quarterly newsletter. The next one is being published on the 1st of July, and submissions are due on the 25th of July, so next Thursday. And just let us know what you do with ePortfolios. What have you done, how you started implementing it, or what your questions are. And you'll have a worldwide audience. You bring out your ideas and can therefore share them, inspire other people. And by viewing the newsletter yourself, of course, you can also learn how others are implementing it. In this case in particular Mahara, and then have contacts around the world in order to increase your presence, and also in order to contact them if you have any further questions. And if you have any questions for me, please feel free to drop me an email or send me a message on mahara.org, or see me at some of the events that we are going to or that are being hosted around the world for ePortfolios in the use of Mahara, and I'll be happy to chat further.